Welcome to the Milestones Podcast, where we engage, inform, and encourage parents in strategic moments in their families' lives. Whether your family is close to the Lord or far away, this conversation is for you. All right, welcome to episode 1 of the Drive Podcast, and I will just tell you that out of all the milestones and all the podcast, the Drive will probably have the most PG-13 R rating, maybe. I would just assume the topics that are going to be covered. And so if you're at a red light and you're listening, you can roll your window up, or somebody's going to look and be like, what are they listening to? So there's going to be a handful of things in here that I cannot wait to talk through. But let's just rapid fire a little bit. If you don't know who's in the room right now, we got Morgan, Amanda, Draper, and myself. And so we're going to walk through a couple of topics. But what is... right now, so the Drive is going to be students 15, 16, maybe some going into that 17. The Drive milestone, what do you think is probably the number one concern, that topic maybe that this generation is probably walking through, and let's 1 or 2 word answers. Morgan's going to give me more than that, but yeah.
Caleb knows I can't give him one answer, and I can't choose one. I'm torn between...
We're already at 7 words.
I'm torn between mental health or sex. I'm torn between those two.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I think loneliness, and I think it can kind of play into all of that.
Yeah. Okay. Dre, what you think?
Dating.
Okay.
Yeah.
I do. I think mine is probably mental health and sex. I'm probably the same thing, just because that's constantly the questions that are brought up. And so lucky for us, the topic of conversation is sex, speed, and drugs. Yeah. And so we're just going to jump right into it. So sex, speed, and drugs, we're not talking about sex, cars, and, fentanyl. We're talking about how now the speed in which someone goes from, hey, how are you doing, to having sex, and all of a sudden that dopamine rush in their mind is like a drug that they just have to have, is just off the charts. And so, which I would say 10 years ago, this conversation probably would be held a little differently, and it wouldn't be done the same way. And now, I would say before, 15 years ago, we split the room up, guys and girls, when we have these conversations. And now you're walking to more of you're having more conversations with girls struggling with pornography than you are with guys, and so you're having a whole room full of people that, why are you splitting the room up? Used to the guy was the aggressor. Now the girls are aggressive, and the guys are like, man, I'm trying to back up, and she's pressing into me, and so it's a whole new topic of conversation. And so we just want to open up that conversation with parents and just walk through some of that. And so I would just start with any of you guys. Maybe Morgan might want to jump in, probably just because of just conversations just with students, that I know have happened recently. But the average understanding of sex, just the average understanding of what it is. One, where does that come from, or what do you think that is? So Morgan, talk to us about sex.
As sad as it is to say, they know more than you think they do. Like, they know more than you think they do. And also, they know younger than any other generation about sex. Think about it. It's movies, music, television, social media. It's everywhere. It's complete bombardment of sex. So naturally, their curiosity is going to be entertained. They have so many questions. And I think that's one of the things, looking back on, is their understanding of sex. Not only do they know more than you think that they do, but they're also knowing much younger than we think that they do.
Yes.
They're also learning it wrong.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, when we talk about dating, sex, when we talk about intimacy, all those things, that is our largest gathering of students all year. And I don't send out a thing that says, hey, I just want to let all the parents know we're talking about sex. I don't do that. We just have this conversation, and it is just a massive amount of people. And I feel like every year it kind of starts the same way.
Yes.
As a parent and also as the pastor, I almost have to start out and just let them know sex is not a sin. And it's just the room's completely quiet, like, heck yeah, let's start clapping. Yeah. And I'm like, this is something the Lord made.
Yes.
This is something that he came up with. You didn't do something. You're like, hope he doesn't find out about this. Yes. This is something he made. And we we walk through your body. Like there's some things that he made very soft, some things that he made very hard, some things that transform. And it's just very quiet in the room. And people are like, can he talk like this? And be like, this is what the Lord has made, let's rejoice in it, and so it's almost like sex existed before sin did.
Yeah.
We ruin that.
Yes.
And I think maybe that might have to do with our understanding of intimacy.
Yes.
And what that looks like.
I think actually you've covered a lot that I need to say. So bye. No,
You're not getting out of this one.
That's one of the things. Like, I mean, sex is a gift. It's a gift from God that should be shared between husband and wife only. It's just like anything else that God has given us that's good, the enemy has perverted. And I think that we have a sense of perverted sex even within our marriages and our homes. And we are searching for... See, told you. I already messed up.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think when they start ready to search for something, they a lot of times they're just following their heart, however they're feeling, and that's how sex got them somewhere.
Yes.
And then, all the drug, the dopamine, everything that just kind of fills your mind up, that you think, well, why did the Lord give me this desire when I'm 12?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Why did the Lord make this for me when I'm 15 or 16? And you're kind of mad at the Lord for it. And I'm thinking, guys, when you're 15, back in Bible days, you're married.
Yeah.
Like, we're the ones that changed it.
Yes.
And so I think some of that happens just from people are just confused at this is our culture did this.
Yeah. And, and to touch on your point, Caleb, like you said, sex is not bad. God created sex. When we divorce sex or we separate sex from the Bible, that's when it goes wrong. Because you have to take sex and the Bible, because the Bible explains how we are to use this beautiful gift that God has given us. And so we have to keep those two together. And without those two being together, that's when it goes wrong. And like you said, and I pray that parents have heard this, you said this, we're doing it wrong because we're creating these mini marriages at 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Like some of these kids probably been married and divorced.
I was about to say they've been divorced 5 times. Yeah.
So it's like, and the thing that is that this is what I tell people. You don't think that is rewiring your brain? I mean, you're thinking about these kids' brains are so soft, so malleable, and they get into these relationships and they getting so connected with this other individual, and then they have this breakup because they both are dumb. I mean, kids are dumb. Let's just call it how. They're very smart, but they also very dumb, and so then they break up, and so it's like you just constantly having these mini marriages, getting divorced, mini marriage, getting divorced. They jacked up in the head.
Yeah. At this age, I would just I know this that. Pornography, sex before marriage, all these things. Sex is it's selfish.
Yeah.
Before you're married, it's it's what you want to do.
Yes.
It's how you want it. It's what you want. I mean, you can go on a website, find exactly what you want, and you can go after it. And when you're dating, it's very selfish. Mm-hmm. Well, if that's all you create this world where this is what sex is. And then what happens is somebody gets married. Marriage, the way the Bible describes it, is selfless. Like it's not about you. And it's about your wife. It's about your husband. It's not about you. And if all you've done is trained yourself that sex is selfish, you're literally, after 1 year, you're going to need a counselor. You're going to think your marriage is falling apart and there's something wrong with your spouse. But you trained that from the time you started downloading TikTok or social media and you started getting addicted to porn. And it just messed up that thought process. And the search for intimacy has been perverted.
Yeah. It's like the picture that they have developed, that they have painted in their minds over time, whether they knew it or not, has totally, it's a jacked up picture. So then when they get married, as you said, when they get married, they have this picture in their mind of what sex should be. They get married, and that's not what it is. And so now they thinking that, what's wrong with our marriage? Because this is the picture that I've had in my mind because, hello, they've been having sex since they was, 15, 16 years old. And, so it's like, so again, if we take sex and we strip it away from the Bible, that's what happens.
But I think one of the reasons why students don't have a biblical understanding of sex is because parents are not willing to have hard conversations when they're young.
Yeah.
I think from a student's
Are you
perspective,
talking about like what sex is, or just keep the conversation going?
both. I think a lot of our students, they struggle. They have a worldly perspective of sex because they don't know what the Bible says. And that's, it's one of our privileges as student ministers to help them understand that. But a lot of that has to come from the family unit, the parents of, hey, what does the Bible say about sex? As you instruct and you help and you guide and you shepherd your daughter and your son, in these things, I think a lot of it, they have a world view of it because it didn't have a conversation when they were younger.
Amanda, tell me this. Okay, what do you think the idea or what is taught to a young girl now and her understanding of sex versus when you're married? Like, hey, you're not supposed to have sex. You don't talk about sex. Sex is gross. Get away from sex, versus that whole...
I think that is the way that we treat it. I think that we don't know how to talk about it because we have experienced other things, even, for us and growing up and those kinds of things. But I think everything starts from the Lord down, and I know that we all know those things, but everything goes back to our own personal relationship with the Lord. And if it's not an intimate, close, personal relationship with the Lord, then we're not going to have that with our husband or our wife, and therefore we have no idea how to obviously talk it through with our kiddos. And I think it's very important, guys. I mean, if going back to something that you said, if we aren't setting boundaries for our kids, they're definitely not going to set boundaries for themselves. And I know this is such a topic to get into that's difficult, but the way we allow our girls to dress and not just allow it, I think that...
Promote it?
Well, I mean, I do think that,
Well, sometimes they dress that way because their mom's a hoochie mama too.
Well, yes,
Sorry,
but...
can I say that? I didn't. I don't,
Yeah,
do we
yeah,
need to
yeah.
restart that? Okay.
But
Their
I-
mom
You should have
dressed that
seen
way
the
too.
looks around the room.
Well, I think...
We told you to roll up the windows.
I think that there is a lot of pressure on parents, and I think we forget that too. Like, there's pressure. Do we let them do social media or not? Do we let them, go to this, dance and wear this, they're going to the gym to play. We need to be careful, and I'm never more encouraged when I hear someone else say no to their kids, or even sitting around like this and listening to things that we've talked about. When I see a parent say, no, this is firm and this is it.
I think my wife has two things that she kind of lives by. One of those is what she's wearing when it comes to the church is if she gets ready to come to church and she's thinking, I'm going to put something on, but like there's no way I can go down to the front, to the steps, to the altar and get on my knees and bow before the Lord and just go and talk to him without
But
my
most
butt
of
crack
us
falling
are
out.
not going
You know
to
what I'm saying?
church for the Lord.
Oh yeah, but you're
Yeah.
thinking if I can't do that without my butt crack
Yes.
showing or something, she's like, well then I'm not wearing this because I'm literally getting dressed saying I'm not responding today.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And
That's good.
the other part of that is, I think sometimes too in her mind, all she was taught was how bad sex was.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And how to stay with it. And all of a sudden, my wife and we get married, and she just thinks, well, I guess what's going to happen is a switch is going to flip inside of me, and now I'm just going to be ready to go all the time, the rest of my life. And all of a sudden, she realized, man, hey, after we got married, she just felt dirty.
Yeah.
And it was because she just did not understand sex, because she just felt dirty and there's something wrong and we're doing something wrong, because that's all she's been taught. No one taught her anything right and good about how healthy sex can be.
Yeah. And, this is the thing, and Amanda said this, and I think we need to change the narrative when it comes to sex, talking about sex to our children. Sex is not dirty. Sex
Well,
is
and there is a
gift.
difference, too. There is sex and then there's intimacy.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I think that even within our marriages, like we have to be careful. I think that 90% of marriages, probably most of their arguments come back somewhere down the line to sex.
Yeah, because it's a faulty understanding of it. It's like, and so we got to, so we have to be willing to correct that faulty understanding and look at it from a biblical point of view. Because if you don't look at it from a biblical point of view, as which Caleb pointed out, then you start to think it's all about me and my needs and my pleasures and my wants and my desires versus a selfless act of, two people. But, and again, it's that faulty understanding, as you guys was, everybody was talking, I just thought about, Song of Songs, Song of Solomon, it's a great book in the Bible. And if you're a parent, you struggling with these conversations, read that book. It's great. It's there in the Bible. But 3 times it says, do not awaken love until the time is right. I mean, it's giving us warnings there. Our kids love boundaries. They may not tell us that, but they love boundaries. Someone has said if you hadn't met the enemy lately, it could be because you're headed in the same direction. Hey, if you hadn't made your kid mad lately, if you hadn't had a disagreement with your kid, it could be because you're a punk. You're a pushover. But it's like, do not awaken love until it's time. Like, we have to be willing to have those conversations openly, age appropriately with our kids on boundaries and why we don't do things. Because, listen, I won't get graphic, but you get a boy and a girl together alone. I mean, you don't need a book to figure out what's going to happen. I mean, it's nature takes over.
Do we have a relationship already established with our kids that we can have these type of conversations?
That's a good question. That's a good question.
I think you bring up a good point. I think maybe the massive amount of people that haven't had these conversations or they're not developed is literally because their own marriage is there's tension there anyway, and because maybe the husband is saying like, well, really all I need is more sex. Really what he's looking for is more intimacy. And she is too. And literally it's just, maybe it comes through sex, but it literally is, you're looking for intimacy. And I think maybe because there's such a tension in somebody's marriage, it's hard to have that conversation. Or you have a mom or a dad who they struggle with pornography, and all of a sudden now you have to talk to your kids about it, and you're thinking like, it is crazy the amount of conversations that I've had over the last few months with parents who literally, the way they handle sex or masturbation or talking about this with their kid is, hey, well, man, I don't know how I got through middle school without it, man. So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
These are people that go to our church that love the Lord, and they're just, that's their answer. Or, hey, whatever you do, just make sure it's in your bedroom. Don't come out here, or keep it in the bathroom.
Yeah.
And
don't get her pregnant.
And I'll call and I'll just say, hey, this is what they told me. And this, is this, and they're like, yeah, is that wrong? What I told them? And I'll start walking into, well, this is what we believe. This is what the Bible says. And they're shocked. And I think some of that just goes back to the own intimacy that they have in their own marriage, that sometimes, why would I talk to my kid about this? Or when they do, it comes from a very selfish nature of oh, let me tell you about men. Let me tell you about guys. This is what they're doing.
Yes.
And then, you get comments from the husband, and the husband's like, well, hey man, you're going to be sleeping with her the rest of your life. Better hope she's pretty. What is that?
Got to test it out.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. It's things like that where you're hearing and you're like, well, there's probably tension there.
Yeah.
That, that's a great point. And
you can't give away what you don't have.
Yeah. And with that, and I know because of that, you get very passive as a parent,
Yes.
talking to your kids, very passive on those things. Maybe like, don't have sex, don't do this. What are y'all doing? Maybe you're not passive there, but you're just passive on having an open conversation. And where you are passive, the world will be very intentional.
Yeah.
And if you decide to be passive, the world will step in and say, no, this is what needs to happen. I mean, I have a daughter, and where I'm passive in her life, some guy will step in and be very intentional.
Yes.
If I'm not. And so like you just have to like parent that way and understand, I know you've had a long day. I know you're going through this. You cannot be passive with your kids.
Yeah.
You cannot be passive when it comes to their relationship. You cannot be passive about certain things because the enemy is not trying to hurt them. He's trying to kill them. And you have to stand firm.
Yes.
And I know it's going to take more effort and more energy, but you have to do these things.
Yes.
I think this is why I say this is why I like the drive. We'll have more conversations about this. There's more to come, and maybe we might have one that just has to do with Draper. When are you going to do a milestone for just like adult issues that we can talk to? So anyway, but yeah, there's more to come with this. Like, hey, stand firm in your faith. I hope you're encouraged. I hope you have the next step to take, and be in His Word. Stand firm. Don't give up. Keep fighting the good fight that's in front of you. And so our student team, our staff, we're praying for you guys and hoping that you would follow the Lord's direction.